Welcome back to the stream. So this is a continuation of the stream from earlier today that mostly involves bulk processing of Internet of Things cameras to make them ready for this class that my coworkers are doing soon. And the first step of this stream is to warm up this scary contraption, the solder pot. Let's get a fresh card for the camera for this. Hey Tuco, you're gonna need to stay down from there as soon as I turn this on. Fresh SD card for the camera. Hey Tuco, stay away from that thing. Hey, little guy. Had to change into something slightly less flammable. Well, this is from an earlier project I worked on. I happen to have some fireproof overalls from DDI. Well, they're not fireproof, they're Nomex, which makes them somewhat less likely to burn, or rather to melt and continue to carry a flame than other fabrics. Anyway, so this is just a tiny solder pot. I think I just hooked up a power meter to it here, and I think it was drawing less than 100 watts. So let's see. That is empty. Let's get this started. And let's get the Tuco cam. I guess he's gonna steal my seat for a while. That's fine. He can be behind me. I can be between him and the solder pot. So to recap the what's behind this, I have like 30 of these little cameras that I'm modifying. And so the state that most of them are in, I've cut open the case on the corner here so that the serial header is exposed. And I want to solder some little wires between that and a 0.1 inch header so that it's in a format that's kind of didactically convenient for this exercise. And then just epoxy the header on there. So I did this kind of by hand for a few, kind of looking at what the process was like. So I have like 3 of them right now that are in a mostly finished state. So these haven't, I think only one of these has been tested, and of course none of them have the header epoxied on. But I did a few of these using a pretty classic wire wrapping technique. So I soldered the Kynar wire wrapping wire to the board on that side, but then on the header side I actually just used a wire wrapping tool. And that was okay, but I don't really have the proper wire stripper tool for that. I think I used to, but I don't anymore, and my regular wire stripper is just super slow at stripping this kind of wire. So I was thinking that I would try an alternative and see if it would be faster to use the solder pot to just bulk prep a bunch of small wires, and this time to use magnet wire so that I can just burn off the insulation. And I'll use magnet wire, cut a bunch of them to a short length, then tin like several at a time in the solder pot on both ends. Then I plan to just take a long strip of this header material, because it comes in long strips, and just work on a whole long strip and just solder a wire to each one, then break off groups of 4 and use each group of 4 to prep one of these cameras. And there are obviously plenty of other ways to do it. I mean, the most most expedient way to do this would be to have a wiring harness manufactured that fits this original connector and to buy some of those connectors. But this is a little more like the kind of general purpose technique you would usually use in some unknown hardware like this. So it's also what I have right now, so I'm gonna just try to make that particular thing fast and to document it, since the documentation is also important for my purposes. All right, so that's what we're working with. So I was going to put on some gloves because this also involves a lot of flux, and I always make a huge mess with this particular type of flux. And get this thing started heating up, and it might be interesting to get some footage of the solder melting, since the solder pot is an interesting object. But yeah. I think I will need a chair. Maybe I can convince Tuco to move elsewhere. Is that cool, Tuco? Sorry. Yeah. Someone in chat noticing the American Beauty brand was pointing out how weird that was in the last stream. US Water Rockets in chat is recommending to 3D print a strip of the black stuff and then poking wires through the strip instead of soldering to the header. I don't think that would work very well. These headers have a really specific shape, and it's really not the same as wire. They're also much harder than wire, so like if you try using wires as headers, it can work, but it's not nearly as good. And especially if I'm using a thin wire that I could solder to this part of the board, then those aren't going to make a good wire to be like pushing connectors into, so there's going to have to be some kind of a joint, and these headers are actually really convenient. So, these I plan to just, hold them in a vise, solder a bunch of little wires, break them off. I think that'll work out all right. So, let's see. Oh yeah, so this is a little dusty. It might smoke a little when I turn it on. I also hooked it up to a kilowatt over here because I was curious how much power this used. I didn't think it was super power hungry, but I'd forgotten what the actual rating was. This is like the smallest non-sketchy solder pot I could find when I was in the market for one a while ago to make lots and lots of wires for an art project. So full power, that's 80 watts, so not bad at all. I'm curious, I was going to get the IR thermometer. I don't think there's much on here we could read because it's all metal, but I'm curious what it looks like anyway. Oh, that's neat. You can see the ceramic heating element glowing. I don't really want to move that camera because I want to maybe time-lapse this footage, but I think I'll just borrow Tuco Cam. Hey, buddy. That's the thing, but we need more closeness happening. Oh yeah. So that camera's not really focused, but you're kind of seeing it. So that glow at the bottom is a reflection off the metal, but the glow in the middle is the ceramic heating element. Neat. And this isn't really getting an accurate temperature reading. I wouldn't expect to. It's actually kind of hard to get an accurate temperature reading of something like this unless you have a sacrificial thermocouple. You could press a thermocouple up against the side and it would be fine, but to measure the actual temperature of the solder, I think there are tools for that, but they generally don't last super long. Yeah, I'm surprised there's no smoke too. I can still see some like dust on the top that hasn't burned yet, so I think it's just not very hot. Yeah, I was going to prep some of this other stuff, but given that I kind of want to leave the camera trained on this until it melts, then I guess I'll put that off for the moment. As it happens, I have a beer. So, yeah, I think overall strategy, I'm going to have to remember not to touch the cat after I actually get Flux in my hands. But I haven't actually opened any of that stuff yet. Gotta get my pets in now. Oh yeah, Jarrett in the chat asks, doesn't the solder for these come in bars? Yes, I have one here. I was going to show you as soon as I have the camera finished with this shot. I'll bring that out. The solder pot is really full right now, so it doesn't really need to recharge. But I can show you what the bar of solder looks like. It came just like rattling around in a USPS box when I ordered it, and it was like a cast bar, but then it was clear somebody had just like bent it so that it would fit into the flat rate postal box. Ah yes, a watched pot never boils. Oh, so I expect there to be a lot of dross on the top, but one of the fun aspects of these solder pots is kind of sweeping the dross off the top. I was kind of tempted to put this under the microscope too, but it's a little high up to get under the microscope, and I don't even think that level of magnification is necessary at this point. I mean, it often isn't necessary, it just kind of looks fun, but I guess I could take the microscope handheld and see if that looks interesting. Oh wow, EOS Water Rockets in chat apparently has a giant solder pot, 6 inches across and 8 inches deep, with a stainless encased thermocouple probe to measure the temperature. Yeah, I mean, this thing clearly measures its own temperature to some degree of accuracy, but it's just not fancy enough to have a display, and it's probably got the sensor. Actually, I think this might be open loop. Now that I think about it, because yeah, I think this is just like a light dimmer style control to vary the power going through the coil. So I think I usually turn this down to like halfway once the solder melts. Oh yeah, this is the same solder pot that I used on this art project called Ecstatic Epiphany a while ago. It was like a wall of LEDs, lots of assembly labor. Basically involved joining together tons of these little kind of 9 LED long strips with groups of 3 wires. So a lot of. I mean, that's why I got the solder pot and the automatic wire stripper. Both of which I found a decent amount of use. The wire stripper more than the solder pot, but I've used this on a handful of projects since. Oh yeah, that looks like it's starting to melt. I wonder if I can start poking it. Usually I just use like a piece of stranded wire. I have some kind of used solder braid over here, which might work all right too, and it's right here. Oh, it's still solid, but I think we've got some bits of molten solder coming up. That's looking interesting. I'll reposition the tripod, but try to avoid touching Tuco. Well, I can show you the solder bar on this camera. I'll get it under that camera once it's done with this shot. I don't know why it's in a bag that also has a bunch of Q-tips in it. I guess I was using these to clean something solder related, or they were like extras that I'd set aside. Anyway, yeah, it's a bar of solder, 6040 tin lead. It's stamped 6040 right in there, which you probably can't read, but I'll get that under the camera. Yeah, it looks like it was just poured in a... Oh, you can see the mold on this side. It says Roto Metals, which I guess is who I bought it from. And then this is the side that I've been melting at. So I haven't used that much of it so far, but I think the bar was maybe that long when I've got it. I just kind of like bent it in the middle. Yeah, so that's the thing. Ooh, it's looking molten. Oh. Ooh. That's fun. Dross. Okay, so at this point, I will pull this back, and we can get, let's put this a little further back, and just free up the camera. All right, let's take a closer look at the solder that goes into this, since that might be some really fun B-roll to have. It's not really necessary to handle this with gloves. I just mostly wearing the gloves for the flux, which is kind of an irritant and it's really sticky. $60-40. That's nice. You can see the interesting detail where the metal has been bent there. So, yeah, these things are fun. I recommend them if you don't really value your safety and have lots of wires to tin. All right, so this was my flux containment vessel of the day. I think I had been using this kind of flux. It's a liquid. It's pretty tenacious. It dries out really quickly, which is kind of annoying, but it works really well. I might try something slightly different, though, if I have an option. This is probably dried out, but we can see what state it's in. Native Spudger, I think, is the state it's in. I don't know if that helped. I might have to... I was hoping to reuse this, but maybe I have to start over. Maybe this one is sealed shut forever. Oh, let's turn this down. It doesn't need to be on 100% this whole time. This is very sealed. Well, maybe I will deal with this later, and for now, we can start another flux distribution operation. Some more of these little metal Altoids tins that I'm going to wash this out and then put a little bit of paper towel in the bottom to act as a pad to soak up the flux. the Kim wipe. I mean, I want the flux to be largely liquid, but I think it helps to have something a little bit absorbent in there to kind of buffer the sloshiness. Alright. These are very similar. I think they're both just rosin and an alcohol sort of solvent. Let's just use this one. I know this one works pretty well for this. Yeah, I think I can get the other one open by squirting some alcohol around the seal and letting that soak a bit, but I don't feel patient enough to deal with that right now. Yeah, this basically dries into like tree amber. Geez, it's like stuck and kind of trying to be childproof. Alright, maybe let's try the other one. Oh, I'm getting bits of dried flux all over the gloves too. I'm glad I'm wearing the gloves. Man. Okay, maybe this one is the most promising to get open. I'm going to try squirting a little alcohol around the cap. Let's keep that out of the way. Good question from the chat. Do I have vice grips? I do have vice grips. I think it would just completely crush the cap of this bottle, so I think I could get it open, but in a way that would not allow it to reseal. So I'm trying to be a little less crazy about opening it for the moment, but that is an option. The childproof lock mechanism is spewing alcohol everywhere. Yeah, it's like the outer cap is fine, but the inner cap is very stuck still. I also don't know if I could get the... Oh, I guess with the vice grips I could just take the outer cap all the way off if I wanted. Oh, maybe I can do that just with my fingers. Now the hair is getting in my eyes and I can't touch it. Oh man, I'm really glad I'm wearing gloves for this part. I think this is working. I'm like levering off the outer cap, I think. Oh, I think I managed to get the outer and the inner cap to friction fit against each other, and now it's turning? Is that a real thing, or am I imagining it? No, I think it's the outer cap turning against the inner cap, which is less useful. Okay, well, this is so sticky. Phew. The water heater machine knows how to make tea now. That's what that noise means. Oh, it's turning very slowly. It's like so thick. The alcohol seems to be softening it. Oh, and my glove is all ripped up. I'll need a new one. Wow, this bottle's in bad shape. I don't know if I have any spare bottles to put this in, but at least it's open. Let's get some new gloves. Maybe wash, because I think I got some flux under my glove. Ugh. My hands still feel clean. I'll just put some new gloves on. Probably going to have to wash them fairly well after this anyway. Yeah, that was annoying. Now it's open. And my hands are probably slightly sticky. It might just be sweaty. I don't really want to blow on my gloves right now. It might help, but... Okay, while I'm thinking about objects that would help, I will go grab some... Oh, this. Huh, this is exactly what I wanted. I thought I was going to have to get some of this from the bins on the other side of the room. This is some like 20 gauge automotive wire. This is like some of the stuff I was using for that art installation where I used the solder pot to tin lots of wires. And this also happens to make a really great draw scoop. If I just strip off a decently long amount of this, make a little brush, and then cut it to a reasonable length. Now I actually have a nice little thing. Oh, I should do that on camera because it's kind of cool, but we'll get there. And man, the solvents in this are strong. Let's I'm probably gonna end up making a huge mess at some point. Let's try to gingerly put that together. Alright, so solventy. So I think we want to be working with this wire. Lots of options, but 32 gauge magnet wire seems like the go-to for this. I think I have some much thicker stuff, but I don't know if I have stuff that's a little bit thicker would be fine, but you don't want it to be that much thicker because this, often you'll want to be attaching this to stuff that's pretty small, so you don't want the wire to be pulling very hard. In this particular situation, since it's a connector, its pad's designed for a connector, not just like test points or random leads on the circuit board packages, then you could use larger wire effectively. All right. Oh man, that hair, it's in just the wrong spot. Okay. Let's actually get this on the solder pot again. Oh, let's maybe manual focus so I can tell what my close limit is. So let's put the camera right about there and then go back to autofocus. And then let it autofocus and then lock it there. Yeah. All right, so let's just do a test on a piece of this, because I've never done this with such thin wire. Like, solder pots are great for really thick wire. Like, this just is so much better than a soldering iron for really giant wires that you would find in like big battery packs and stuff. Alright, so I'm dipping this in a little bit of flux. That was not quite enough time to melt the insulation. The flux also doesn't really seem to stick until the insulation's burned off. Okay, well that tins. It just takes a couple of tries, I think. I mean, I'm hoping I'm not just coating the wire in dross. I'm going to dip that in some flux and try that again. Oh, I could feel the wire heating up that time. So that did tin it, but just barely. Which is probably fine, since I can probably do a bunch of these wires in parallel. So I'm not really worried about that. Not quite as clean as I would like, but it'll totally do. I've got, maybe I can get this under the microscope really quick. So just to compare, here's, I'm going to show first just a non-tinned end of this. So just for comparison, it's coated in enamel and there's a little cut that exposes some of the internal metal, but it's pretty little and you couldn't really solder to that. It would take a while to solder. Then on the other side, amidst the huge amounts of glare, can we fix that? Oh, there we go. I'm going to get another shot of the other side against the glove too, because this works much better. So yeah, that actually is fine. That's enough tinning. It was kind of hard to tell at first what was it kind of coating the varnish with residue, and so it looks like I have kind of messed up the varnish a little bit on the nearby parts of the wire, but that's fine. What we really care about is that the end is nice and shiny and has solder sticking to it. So then this control end, just all covered in varnish and a little bit squished. Alright, I'm going to try that again just to get a feel for it. I've got some questions as far as like which order to apply the flux and the heat, like whether I need to add heat first just to burn off the varnish and then flux it, then, or whether I can just do it all in one step. So I want to experiment a little bit with that. So there's the solder pot. So I'm going to try first just dipping it and then solder pot once and just see if that's enough. Put a generous amount of flux on and then just hold it in there for some time. Well, it's hard to tell. It looks like that's tinned. Let's check it under the microscope. I think it's maybe partially tinned. Well, solder has definitely started to stick to the very end of the wire, where it was already free of the varnish, but the varnish hasn't actually burned off. So yeah, I think that does take longer. So I'm just going to cut that end off just to have a fresh experiment. And then I'm going to try just without dipping it in the rosin. I'm going to try, maybe I'll hold it with pliers just so it doesn't get too hot. And just hold it in the solder pot until it seems like the insulation's starting to burn off. Let's see what that process is like. So untreated wire, no flux, just sticking it in there. And you can see it doesn't even really go in very well. This dross is kind of sticking to it. And Yeah, it's interesting, because I think, let's look at that under the microscope too. I think we are going to need to flux it both times. I like kind of double dip this process. So if you look at it now, I think what's happening is solder is kind of sticking, but not very well. So, oh, that's interesting. Okay, so it's starting to, well, maybe it just wasn't in there long enough, actually. Oh, I'm sorry. I was supposed to be on this channel. Oh, there's some good suggestions using a higher temperature on the solder pot maybe, or I really don't want to have to resort to like sandpaper or a knife, because I think I can, like, I think I want something that's more bulk than that. I mean, I could do that if I made a little jig where like I just, like I could imagine wrapping a bunch of wire around something and then sanding it on a couple of points. I wonder if it'd be worth doing that. Well, let's see how hard it is to actually just, like, maybe I just didn't quite leave it in long enough, because that would be easier if I could just do it in one step with the solder pot, or at least 2 steps with the solder pot even. So let's get a fresh test piece here. And I'm going to try dipping it in flux once, then solder pot to burn off the insulation, then flux and solder pot again to make sure I have a good coating. And maybe I will just hold it with my finger, because I can kind of judge how long it's been in there based on when the wire starts to get hot. Oh. I will change that. Well, it hasn't started to get hot yet. It looks like I'm... Oh, maybe moving this around and going in and out maybe helps. It's hard to tell if that just makes more draw stick to the wire, though. I put that in flux again, and then in here. It's not quite as effective as I was hoping. Well, okay, now there it goes. So maybe it just takes a while, but if I use enough wires in one bundle, then it'll be fine. I think that's, I don't know, I'll keep the wrapping wires on something idea in my back pocket in reserve, but I think first I'm just going to try cutting bundles of this. Oh, using a lighter. I don't know about lighters, because when I've tried that, it just removes way too much of the insulation and leaves soot everywhere else. Oh, let's see, how many of these do I even want to do for starters? This is basically turning into the other idea. I was just trying to do this to get a bunch of wire that was a usable length. Just going to take this off my fingers and then cut it. Man, I can smell this flux evaporating. It's got some kind of really strong solvent in it. This says the solvent, right? Butan 2-all ethanol. Oh, yeah, that sounds right. So, So I'm just prepping a bunch of these. I think I want not a lot of length here. I would like those not to be splayed out everywhere. Maybe I could hold on to them and keep them in a bundle. That would be nice. Let's pick those back up. I should reposition the camera. Servo AF. Catception. There we go. I don't think I've managed to get much flux on my gloves yet. This is like, I feel like I should make wigs or something. Just folding it again. Should probably get a sharper set of cutters for this particular job. These are nicer for that. So I'm going to try just having a little bundle of these. The tricky part, I think, is going to be to have them not all just solder to each other. So I need to spread them out a bit. And just try to eliminate the really short ones that are there by accident. Okay, maybe smaller groups at first. Short wires heat up way faster. I know that. Might not be able to hold these by hand for this process. I'm a little worried about damaging them holding this bundle with the pliers, but I think it'll be fine. I don't know. Could also just put on heat-resistant gloves for this part. It doesn't work very well. Yeah, maybe the Wrapping these on a piece of something is starting to appeal. Oh. I have an idea, which doesn't actually necessarily involve the solder pot being the next step in this process, but maybe that's fine. I think it might actually be way easier to work with these if I set this up like, I don't know, like weaving. Like I put these two, like I put two of these headers in a vise, and then I just loop magnet wire back and forth between them. And then even without the enamel, I think I can just solder and use the soldering iron to burn through where I'm soldering it to the headers. And then after that, I can cut down the middle, and I have the little wires sticking out just where I need them. And then I can use this to hold and dip in the solder pot. So I think that's going to be a better bet than this particular endeavor. So I'm going to turn this off for now and put it aside and start that process. I'm going to put this, maybe get another small plastic bag for that so that the flux evaporates a little slower. Oh, that's a cool idea. Edward in chat mentions that Temco makes a magnet wire insulated with a material that acts like flux when it burns off. That sounds pretty amazing. I don't have any of that though, but I should look up how to get some. I think this variety of tiny plastic bag is large enough. The ever-present tiny plastic bag. Ooh, yeah, is this the same one? Maybe not. Should probably get a bottle or something. Actually, it'd be nice to have like a little screw top pot for this kind of stuff. It would probably also be nice to have some gel flux, or, well, I have the gel flux in the syringe, but there's like yet another consistency of flux you can get that's like a paste you could dip stuff in, which I should have some of that, but I don't think I do. So that would be nice, I think. Alright, these gloves are coming off for the moment. Gloves off, beer on. Alright, so let's try that thing that I just had the idea about. So, a couple of these. Might even use, I'm going to grab a bunch of these to use to kind of help stabilize those. Alright, so, attaching these all to each other did not necessarily make them easier to use. Thanks, past me. So yeah, these kind of have to go in this direction, otherwise they don't fit. I think that's, I mean, that's cutting it a little short, but I don't need much wire, so that's actually fine. Having short wires might actually make some of this convenient. I mean, I guess alternatively I could make it that long, have something, like, I'd basically be cutting it in the middle, so the distance between these is twice the length of the wires that I would have left over. So, let's try that. If the wire is too short, it'll be inconvenient for a number of reasons. It'll be hard to bend. It'll be prone to have too much heat conducting through it while you're soldering. So I'm kind of mangling some pins on that border there. It does actually have a bezel that's thicker than that separation between pins. Maybe I should just use a bigger breadboard. I would like to have a little more separation, but this is fine, I think. All right. So now I think I can just run this wire back and forth. So let's start. Oh, I'm not quite sure if this is what you meant. There's a comment from Nicholas in chat. How about using one header as a non-solder loop point? And I'm not quite sure what you meant, but what I'm imagining that you might have meant is to put another header in the middle to solder the wire to have a way to heat up the wire there. That's an interesting. It's tempting. I'm gonna maybe try to still use the solder pot though. So I think I'm gonna go back and forth, and you know, basically, there's a lot of ways I could do this, but like I think the most straightforward thing is to just kind of loop back and forth like this, and then solder while this is in position, and then just like cut those bridges after the fact. So, I mean, basically I just want to have an easy way to keep tension on these wires as I thread them, which I think might be one of the tricky parts. And I guess I could try, like I could solder periodically if I need to tack stuff down. So, oops. I was trying to move out of the way to help it be more visible, but then it slips. doing so well. Yeah. So I kind of want to stop there and maybe test the theory here and see if this is actually easy to work with. So I think I just tied it off on, well, not really tied off, but kind of looped around its neighbor to make that a little easier to work with. Okay. So I'm going to see if I can just solder through that. I also kind of want to get this under the microscope, despite everything being in the way. Solder on the solder pod's starting to solidify. Okay. So that's what we're working with, basically. Let's see if that's actually helpful. But that's still attached. Thanks, beep. I feel like there must be a minefield of stickiness around here somewhere, but so far I haven't encountered it. Oh man, why is this view so low? There we go. I think that's the connection. So, I mean, clearly this is more melty on the plastic than we really want, but if it gets the job done. And it looks like it's got a connection to the wire, although it's maybe not the prettiest thing. I'm trying to really directly heat up the wire so that most of this can affect the insulation before necessarily affecting the header entirely. It's way over there. That one's stubborn. I've also got this solder pot right here that I'm trying not to touch. Oh, you've got a little bit of a connection there. Come on. And you've got one way down here. Ugh, that's no good. That's a little better. Still not great, but... starting to get the hang of this. There's going to be like a procedure for this that makes it not so bad. This is gross. More heat? Yeah, I don't know. Oh, I think here there's a mechanical problem. That's better. I just need a tweezer for that. Huh. Oh, that's not good. Wire keeps moving out of the way, so then I have to kind of bridge this gap with the solder, which it doesn't want to do. I think that might have worked. Yeah, that looks fine. This is not so good. I think it's working out, but it's kind of gross and not as convenient as I had hoped. I might try some of this other magnet wire here just to see if its installation's a little easier. I mean, this is the stuff I usually work with, but usually I don't quite have to care about doing it in bulk, you know. I mean, usually the connections I'm making are annoying enough on their own that just stripping the wire isn't the part that's time consuming. Ugh, I need to clean that off. Oh, neat. There's a link in chat to the wire. Apparently, it's called Solderon by Temco, or Solderon, Soderon. Yeah, I'll have to check out that because I do enough of this magnet wire rework that it would be nice to have some of that around here. I probably can't afford to wait to get that before finishing this job, but it'll be helpful to have some of that in the future, you know. Oh, this is starting to make me reevaluate going back to you know, wrapping it around some form and then sanding the form and then cutting it. That might actually be way better than this. This stuff is really annoying to deal with. And I think this is just doing more harm than I would like to all the plastic parts involved. So let's try to undo this whole setup because I don't think this is going to be what I want. just gonna get like a cardboard tube and tape this to that, and let's see how far that gets me. Alright. Oh man, I really melted this breadboard pretty badly. That was unfortunate. Well, that'll still work. It's just an unsightly blemish. Oops. This is not the first damage this breadboard's seen, but it might be the worst so far. Well, cardboard tube. Let's try that. Okay, this is gonna look a little bit like an old school crystal radio for a bit, including the variable inductor. So, I'm kind of wishing I had a spool that was the right size for this, but this is super long compared to everything else I have that holds wire. Oh, that was another good suggestion from the chat from Sodium, who says you could probably get away with cutting them to length and then sanding just the ends of the bundle a little bit, which might help. The bundles are already super hard to work with, like I was struggling to just hold them, so that was also part of what I was hoping the tube might help with. I'm trying to be careful about not having these overlap and only being semi-successful. Snagged on some tape. My crystal radio is going to totally fail. I think it would be much easier with less tape here. I think that's better. I guess this doesn't quite necessarily have to be as accurate as an inductor, since I can always, discard the pieces that didn't work out. I'm trying to bring this back together while still keeping some of the tension. Just don't want these overlapping all over the place. Okay. Let's try to be somewhat perfectionist, but not completely, because it really doesn't matter for this. I just need to kind of keep it together. Yeah, this definitely is like part of a Tesla coil or part of an AM radio. I still find it valuable to have these. I mean, I found it valuable as a kid, I guess, to build kits for stuff like that, and I imagine that it's still useful these days. But there's just so much distance between build a crystal AM radio set and what's actually going on in your cell phone. So, I mean, I kind of find that journey interesting, but I hope it's not such a long one that people just give up, you know. These coils don't really need to be tight. If I push them a little together, it'll make them easier to sand. By quite a bit, probably. I also haven't really been counting how many of these I need. I mean, I basically need like 100 of these that work. So count whatever overhead of making failures I want into that. I mean, like 100 wires, like 30 of the actual groups of 4. I know I'm not really getting much of this on camera. Is that any better? It's gonna look more organized all of a sudden. Also tempting to mount this cardboard pole on a drill, but I actually have a drill chuck adapter for 3D printing spools, but I don't think that would fit on this. It's clamps from both sides, so it has a maximum depth. Let's see roughly what I've got so far. Probably got like 50, which is probably about enough since I can get more than one wire from each turn. Let's just do a little more just to have some margin. It's just so tempting to keep going. I mean, it's so shiny on this tube. I mean, thoughts like that in your head lead to building Tesla coils. Alright, I think that's as much fussing as I care to do at the moment. So, I'm going to tape this down in a way that is somewhat out of the way. And then cut that, tape that, put this back so it doesn't unspool all over the place. Oh man, just imagine a tangle involving, what was this? Oh, this is a 1/4 pound of 32 gauge wire. That's very long. Okay, so now I've got this. I think the next thing I want to do is mask off regions that I want to sand using some Kapton tape since it's pretty sturdy and thin. Let's just bring the tape dispenser over. start somewhat arbitrary. I'm going to assume that I'll have, at least 2 sanded regions that'll be longish that I can cut in the middle of. So basically like that, and then 1 or 2 more. I think I could do 2 more. I'm gonna cut this too close, but I mean, even half this diameter is pretty long. Well, I think I'm just gonna have way too many wires if I divide it into 3 though. Yeah, should be fine. I'd rather have too many wires than each individual wire be way too long. So I'm just kind of trying to judge how long of a wire I want. Which I think is actually roughly in thirds. There's a suggestion in chat to just like bulk strip old ribbon cable. That is one option. I've used ribbon cable for this kind of thing a bunch, but I kind of really hate it because it melts so easily. It does strip relatively easily. Whew, that is making some bad squeaks. Sorry about that. Okay. Okay, so that should give me the regions that I want to sand. This might not be the right sanding implement. I'm gonna get something softer. Oh, that's nice. I am destroying the tape as we speak, but it might last long enough. I think what's happening with these bundles actually is that there are a couple of these wires that are starting to get pushed above the others, and then the wires further down are not actually getting sanded at all. Yeah, just more pressure is probably fine. Those tight coils are working against me right now. I don't think I've got enough of them. Oh, that's not real. This is the one that other gap. That's fine. This is what I actually want to scrape. Okay, that's all three. So I think now I leave the tape on, then I go over with a sharp knife to cut the sections, and then I take them out and try to use them. I mean, the next step would be to try to tin them in the solder pot, I guess, so. Alright, knife time. Somebody in the chat referenced MacGyver. I was a big fan of MacGyver. I didn't see it when it was first on, because I didn't really watch like a lot of TV as a kid, but I think one of my friends introduced me in college in the dorms, and I watched a bunch of it then. I need a much stronger knife for this. More like this. That is satisfying. Let's do that, but in focus. Okay. There's this part of me that just wants to, like, I don't know, hit this with some kind of heat source while it's still attached to there. I don't think that would work out super well. I guess I'll just warm up the solder pot again. It's probably still somewhat warm. Mini pot. Do not touch. Yeah, basically that. I can peel this off just like a bundle at a time as I need it. Cool, so now I've got these little things. Let's pull back. So I can open my little burrito here and harvest like cute little sprigs of wire that are all about the same length, and they all have been sanded at least on one side of each end. So that should help the solder pot tin them the rest of the way. So I'm going to bundle up these little things with tape, because I kind of want to keep these in one piece. Just a little thing like that. This scene feels like the carnage that's left over after like destroying a flat flex cable. Alright, that should be a slightly nicer way to hold these as I tin them. Collecting the wires into a little bouquet. Oh, now my mind's all racing about bouquets of flowers and like I used to date someone who was a florist. I mean, she wasn't a florist when I was dating her, but that was like a job she had had in the past, and so she was still pretty like she still had like an eye for flower arrangements and would point stuff out about them sometimes. Yeah, solder pot's warming up. I should demonstrate the solder pot with some more traditional wires so you can see it working normally, because this enamel wire is a bit tricky relative to that. It is very obvious what the solder pot's use is when you see it operate on some chunky wire. So I'll bring some of that over here. See if it's hot yet. Not even. Yeah, that'll take a sec to warm up. It is at 80 watts. It's not the biggest heating element. Harvesting wires. Delicious, delicious wires. Ripe and ready for stewing. Or inclusion in fresh salads. That was a really little bundle of wire. That's fine. Not all the wires bundles need to be enormous. Got all these cute little bundles forming now. Oh, somebody in the chat, Pepper, was saying that we do this with cheese. I'm curious. Wait, the wrapping it part? Is this how you make some type of cheese? That would be pretty cool. Oh, I see the fondue pot. Oh, that's funny. I guess I'm feeling nostalgic today. I can fondue, I could totally connect that to a previous relationship too. There's this fondue restaurant we used to go to as a couple on special occasions, and that was like, I don't know, he's the only person I would have done that with, probably. Just because nobody else in my life was interested in that kind of thing. think it wasn't even necessarily him, but it was like one of his friends was really into it, and so he kind of provoked the whole experience. Okay. Put that tube aside for a sec while I open this up. Delicious bundles. Grabbing bunches of these, collecting them together. This is kind of relaxing. There's something I like about processes like this that start with, you know, wire or other raw materials and then kind of make it into like metamaterial kind of things that, you know, I guess I enjoyed kind of experimenting with something similar with plastic fiber optics. I was trying to make my own version of this thing that I'd seen where it was like a glowing panel that you could use for, you know, textiles or just like surfaces or whatever. And it was made out of a bunch of plastic fiber optics such that there was like a bundle of them coming out of an LED, then they would fan out all flat, and then they would start to emit from the side. And so it seemed like all this would require is, you know, to get a very crude version of that, to just lay out a bunch of plastic fiber optic and then just very lightly sand one side of it with the other side stuck down to some adhesive. So I experimented with that a little bit. It wasn't bad. I mean, it was very non-uniform, which I think is the whole trick in manufacturing good stuff. But it was enough to experiment with. And I can imagine making a more uniform version using some kind of closed-loop process where, you know, imagine building like a little CNC robot that would be like an abrasion wheel that would go across it, but then it would periodically take photos of the light coming out of the panel when illuminated with some kind of test source. I think that might have been too many, but I can always pull them apart a little bit. There is one more bundle on, or one more side of this. The solder pot's starting to look molten. It's nice how they mostly just stick to the Kapton. Oh, sorry, Took. Yeah, there's something about magnet wire stuck to Kapton tape that I find very pleasing. I don't know what that is. Like this very temporary but also kind of rigid form. I was about to call it aesthetically satisfying, but I don't know if I would go quite that far. Feels more like empty calories sometimes. Make like one more bundle, and then we can start trying to tin these. Some of the bundles I made might be a little too big, and I might have to tin them in littler batches. Little bundles. Happy little trees. There's a link. Sodium just posted a link in chat about. I can't tell what it is, but it came up in relation to the Curie point of molten cheese. So that's interesting. Let's take some of these out. This bundle is clearly too big. Okay, let's get this started. So, there's the thing. Definitely molten. Let's turn the heater down. So, I think if I can just like, I think I'm done with the stuff that's likely to get flux all over my hands. So, I'm gonna try doing this without the gloves for a bit. That plastic bag did not survive too well. Oh, look, I've already got flux on my fingers. Great. Yeah, that's about how I thought it would go. I think there was just a squidge of flux on the outside of that container. I don't like sticky flux in my hands. Alright, let's see what we can do with this. So, let's try to separate these. And I'm going to try just dipping part of this. Whoa. That's got some pretty extreme lighting. Alright, so dip a few of these in the flux. Oh, and those seem to be pretty nicely tinned, actually. Some of them stuck together. Oh, they didn't even solder together. They just all tinned. Oh no, these two stuck together. Huh. They mostly look pretty good. I think those are the ones that are stuck. I think I can just clear these with the soldering iron. Yeah, these are nice. Okay, I think that verifies the process, so I think I mostly just need to do these in batches of whatever I can practically dip in the two places. But I still owed you a demo of the solder pot with a more traditional wire. So I really don't like how bright that is right now. if that really helps. I think I also just want that to be more out of frame, I think. It's just that bright spot is kind of screwing with the whole scene's exposure. Okay. Alright. I think we can actually get going now. Where's the tool for my undrossification? This thing. So cute, a little bubble of molten metal. Okay, so some of this wire, for example, is actually pretty great to tin with this particular device. Here's another piece. So you still have to strip it. That's why I got the automatic stripper, because that just makes it like one ka-chunk and then it strips. But it's too beefy to use on these. It just breaks them. Even 30 gauge wire, it would just break it. So apply a little bit of flux. And there you go. Wire is perfectly tinned. In case you missed that, I'll do it again. It makes this whole process incredibly fast. So, plain wire, untinned, flux, solder pot. Look at that. Totally beautifully tinned wire. So, very, very useful for mass production. In fact, it's also super useful for much, much thicker wire. Let me see if I have anything like that handy I could demo. Extension cord is the thickest thing I have handy, but that would make an interesting demo maybe. So this, I have to separate it and then strip it. Just lightly kind of push the connectors together, very slightly twist it. So, wire is freshly stripped. Tip them in some flux. There we go. The solder pot wasn't quite deep enough to coat the entire thing. Let's see if I can do it sideways. Yeah. So, and it works approximately as well even for wire that's like twice that thick, which you find in like battery harnesses sometimes. I guess I don't have any handy, but yeah. All right. So let's see if we can just do this in bulk now. Some of those work better than others, but I suspect there's going to be some kind of failure rate for these that I just have to take into account. And then just like dip them until they get hot, I guess. And then move on to another bundle while that one cools down, then do the other side. And they will stick together if they're like pressed right up against each other. So I'm kind of fussing them apart a little bit. But they don't really need to be that separate because the solder that I'm tinning them with is pretty sparse. So, dip them in there. That looks pretty alright. Not all of them are getting tinned very well, but most of them are. And so I'll just be free to kind of discard the ones that don't work out, and I should have plenty of extra still. This is one of the larger bundles and fussing it apart. And into the flux. And into the pot. And some of those plated really nicely. Might be a couple stuck together still, but that's fine. I can take those apart on a case-by-case basis if I need to. Yeah, the one thing that's kind of tricky about a solder pot relative to regular soldering is that you do have to supply all the flux separately, since of course you can't put flux in there because it would just burn immediately. That didn't work super well. I might have to revisit that side. I think this bundle was a little too big. Many of those worked out fine. This is going relatively fast. Pepper in chat says flux equals cheating. Sarcastically. Yeah. It's much harder to solder without flux for sure. I don't think it's actually doable, at least not in atmosphere. Sure is weird using a solder pot on magnet wire. It doesn't work super well, but it's definitely better than not. A little too close to the rising hot air, but I think that was done by the time I pulled it out. Some of these aren't really getting tinned on both sides of the end effectively. That might be fine. This is still going to drastically speed up the process of actually soldering these. These also get a little out of alignment with regard to length, and so then they all kind of push into the crucible until they touch the sides. The crucible actually has kind of a delicate coating on it, but I think these wires are probably fairly harmless. Alright, these are next. 2 more bundles, and then I start doing the left side of all the ones that I just did. It's pretty alright. Drossy little pot. It's like the tiniest crucible. More wire fussing. I'm sure a bunch of these are going to stick together anyway, but they'll be easy to unstick. Still better than them all sticking together. Oh, Tuco's dreaming. It's like a little bouquet that I've got to dip in molten metal. And then it's like a little tree with metal snow on the leaves. Okay, so flipping these over, doing the other side. Oh, I'll probably be looking for a time to wrap up the stream soon, since I feel like I could use a break from this project. I've been working on this most of the day, and it's been, I think, enough. But I want to at least finish the solder pot stuff and basically test this process, so I think I want to at least get to the point where I have all of these put through the solder pot on both sides, and then I've at least done some of the soldering these to the headers, so I can verify that they're easy to solder. That wasn't so good. I don't know, the actual part that's sanded is getting coated nice and quickly, but the process of burning off the insulation is pretty slow. So let's count that as done. More fussing. Fuss, fuss, fuss. I feel like I've heard that word as a verb so much more recently, but I don't know. Like, I feel like I kind of used it because it was interesting and weird, and then it just started seeming like a bunch of people used it, but I don't know where it first came from, or like, is it just a millennial thing, or what? I don't know. We're seeing there's like a Tumblr, oh no, it's a Twitter account for rating cats that you fussed recently. It seems pretty good. Hard to tell if I can do better or if that's like as tinned as this particular batch is getting, you know? That seems fine. Let's not be a perfectionist with these. There are a lot of little wires. I'm sure there'll be a bunch of mistakes, but a bunch of these will work anyway. Oh, that would be funny. Nicholas in chat says that he'd love to turn the pot off with the bouquet submerged. That would be fun. It would just get stuck there, though. I wouldn't be able to get it out. I forget what the material is, but the solder pot is made out of some kind of metal that, like, it basically ends up reacting with the solder and forming a thin coating that is then kind of delicate. And I forget what the chemistry is there, but basically means that once you've charged the crucible with solder, it's not coming out. Like, you can pour it out, but you can't just like take it out because it's bonded to the actual crucible. But if there were a way to actually get that out, like, I mean, I guess that just turns into metal casting art at that point, which is fine, but it's a totally different discipline. Well, not totally different, but it requires mostly different equipment. That's all right. All right, a few more of these. Cat butt. Ears. We got ears. Just the ears. I feel like I should be playing a flight simulator when I wear this. The story behind it is kind of funny. I mean, I find it amusing, I guess. I don't know if it's actually funny, but so this project I helped out on in 2013. It was a Burning Man thing. It was the one year I went to Burning Man, and it was basically DDR, the like the rhythm game, except when you when you're doing badly, it punishes you by shooting you with fire, like actual fire. And it's actually pretty safe because you wear these fairly burly fireproof suits. I mean, nothing's fireproof, but they're proximity suits, so they're designed to be what firefighters wear when they're actually going into the fire. And so we can shoot people in the face with flamethrowers, basically. You know, not like liquid fuel, but like propane. It's a pretty weird experience. So I was friends with some of the people who designed that, and they were kind of tired of it, so they wanted to run it like one last time and then destroy it, and somehow I ended up involved in that. And so this basically culminated in a night where I was out in the desert running around with a click torch on the end of a long stick, relighting pilot lights while people were playing DDR on this crazy machine. It was kind of weird. Would I do it again? Would I do that exact thing again? Definitely not. Would I do something like it again? Maybe. This bouquet is really complicated. This one was probably too big. Dip the bouquet in flux to get it ready for the pot. Yeah, the solder is mostly not sticking to the enameled parts, just the ends, which is what you'd expect. That seems to have gone all right. Some things go well. Oh, I was trying to catch up on chat, but there were a few different threads I was having trouble teasing apart. Yeah, the chemistry of the solder pot is kind of weird. I don't remember what it was off the top of my head, but like I don't think it's an exotic metal. I think it's like nickel or something, or I don't know. I don't know what makes sense. But yeah, it was some kind of metal that would not on its own stand up to just being surrounded by hot solder all the time because of corrosion, but would form like a passivation layer somehow. So I don't remember what that was. Basically, this was in the manual for the solder pot in the form of don't like scrape on the bottom of it because you'll disrupt that and it'll just like eat through the crucible eventually. That's nicer. 3 bundles left. After we ran that DDI, so the DDI stands for Dance Dance Immolation, and that's this DDI. So all of us who actually helped run the game had to either, bring a fire-resistant suit of some sort or borrow one from somebody who had one. So my friend at the time who I was doing this with, we went around and shopped at like military surplus stores to find something that didn't have too many holes in it and was about our size. Just to get something close enough. But then after we ran the game that last time, their plan to destroy it was to drop a piano on it. That was kind of crazy. I mean, it was people had fun. I mean, it was like a shitty piano from Craigslist or something that wasn't going to go to a better home. And, we managed to fix it up enough that it was kind of sort of playable, and some people played it out in the desert before we dropped it. And then there's a whole other story for how we actually had the heavy equipment out there to drop the piano from, but that happened. And then a bunch of us were out there, like, combing the desert floor for tiny fragments of all the hardware we had out there. So, of course, you had to clean up the mess. So that was a thing. It happened. A lot of people aren't really sure why it happened. I think for a while I just appreciated that it was something that people did together. They didn't really have to have a point. It wasn't just in service of some random corporate greed. It was just a thing that was intentionally pointless, which isn't necessarily a durable source of anything, but it was, I guess, what I needed at the time. Oh, so much fussing. Really don't want these to all stick together. It'll be okay. Alright. A lot of the junk that sticks to the insulation just kind of rubs off. The stuff that, like dross that sticks to the wire when the wire doesn't really plate properly. Alright, I think this is the last bouquet. If we can do some successful tests in terms of just soldering this to headers, then I'm going to turn off the solder pot. Because I'm about ready to be done with it tonight. That would be nice. And I don't necessarily want to get a bunch of the header soldering done today. I don't think I have it in me, but I would like to at least know how well it works so that I can kind of think about what to do next in case I need a plan B for all of this. Because there's plenty of other ways to do all of this. It's just, you know, whole process of figuring out what is the actual simplest approach to implement all the way through. Delicious bouquet. This flux actually does smell kind of interesting. Not quite just in that solvent sort of way, but it has kind of an interesting smell. Alright, so closing this for the moment. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this off just on the assumption that we won't need it, but I would like that to be the case. And then we'll need that. And I'd also like to hold this without necessarily melting a breadboard every time. I think gentle pressure in the stick vise will do it. Oh man, I've been running a time lapse of this long 3D print, and I guess that's finished. Might be able to show that video before the stream ends. Alright, let's just try taking one of these bundles apart. We're just pulling wires out of it. So first I'm going to just kind of rub all the dross off of that. I should maybe do that with an alcohol wipe or something, but I'm feeling lazy right now. And then I think the deal with this is I just hold this whole bundle and solder one to there, and then pull it out. Solder the next one, pull it out, etc. So I'm going to start by tinning a couple of these. And then see if I can just do this. So far, so good. Oh, I got those two stuck together now. I'm out of tin. I mean, out of pins that I've already tinned. Oh, cast iron. Okay, so Sodium answered my question by apparently reading the instructions that I'm hazily remembering. So from the FAQ for this device, the crucible is apparently cast iron, and then it reacts with the tin to form some kind of barrier. Oh, this is not autofocus. Yeah, it's a neat little thing. Okay, let's do a couple more of these, and then let's check out that video and wrap up. Oh, yeah. Gotta actually wait for this to heat up. It doesn't take long, but I have to remember to do it. That's not bad. I'm gonna have to remember this trick in the future where I have a little bouquet and I solder and then use that joint to pull it out of the bouquet. Because that's kinda sweet. I can do a bunch of these and kind of inspect all the solder joints if I want. A lot of these are not the best because I'm not using enough flux necessarily. Anyway, I don't have the patience to fuss over that a whole bunch right this second. But let's take a look at how that ended up so far. I think the camera can't quite go that close. Oh, is that it? Oh. Yeah, I think I need a slightly better work holding method. I might just stick these in some perf board, because the pressure here is causing it to bow, which is not good. Alright, so different work holding next time. But other than the work holding, this seems to have worked pretty well. That is nice. So. There we go. Okay, so I will keep an eye on this while it's still molten. Don't want anything bad to happen, but at least I think we're done heating it. So I'm gonna wrap it up soon, but I want to see if I can show off this video that just finished rendering. Do I have that computer mounted on this computer? Oh, this is annoying. I don't know if I have the file on this computer. I might just SSH into the other one and SCP it over. Volumes. That feeling when macOS has named your network share mount in a completely unuseful way. Oh yeah, this is the right file. So let's SCP those into something that I can show you. Oops. This one. Maybe that button's still a little bit weird. This is not really at all related to what I was just doing. I just thought it was cool, so I would end the stream with it. This is a 3D print of a custom enclosure I was making for a little VFD display to help monitor the stream. This is running at 4096X. I also have a 64X version, which will be kind of long, but parts of it might be interesting. Yeah. I really like viewing things at different time scales. Lots of support material in the middle of this one. So yeah, this one will appear on a stream on the Scanlime channel soon. This one did a lot of the CAD for this on stream, but it's basically just another meta object. It's to help monitor which things are recording and which things are streaming, because there's a lot of that going on around here. And we've got a sleeping cat, as always. Oh, there's a note in chat that clearing out the support material is probably either really tedious or really satisfying. It's probably more satisfying than tedious. This will probably come out all in just a couple of pieces, and it'll come out pretty easily with little pliers. So I haven't done any of the cleanup on this yet, since I might want to do that on video too. I was thinking about actually coating the outside of it with something to help smooth it and make it a little stronger. Like I've got this, I think it's from Smooth On. It's like a coating designed for 3D printing. I might try that just because I haven't tried it yet and I have some here. But I might want to do that before taking this stuff out, since I think that outer perimeter actually ended up being a little bit on the delicate side. This whole thing is it's basically a shade to keep the sunlight and all the ambient light off of the VFD. And so it sticks out a little bit and might not be as strong as I really wanted it to be. But that'll be in a future stream. In the meantime, happy hacking, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.